Welcome to Get On With It, Inspiration for Life and Leadership. I'm your host, Sue MacArthur, President of Strategic Talent Management. We've all met them, the people who have a presence and a unique point of view that make us want to lean in and say, tell me more. In this podcast, we celebrate these people and provide a platform through which they can share their insights. Whether you lead a company, a community organization, or just your own life, we offer you these moments of clarity, hope, and inspiration. So let's get on with it. On this episode, I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to talk with Sarah Shepard, COO, partner, and integrator at StringCan Interactive. Sarah recently returned from a 7-week, what I'm calling a working sabbatical, and wrote about it in her LinkedIn newsletter, String by String. In those posts, she tied her travels to her work and her outlook on leadership. And I highly recommend you find Sarah on LinkedIn and read those entries. I couldn't wait for the next one to come out. So I'm really excited to learn more about that experience and the impact that those travels had on her work and her life. So welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thanks, Sue. It's so nice to talk to you.
I'm so happy to have you here. So let's set the stage. Not everyone can manage to travel abroad for 7 weeks and still keep on top of things at work. Where did you go, and why did you decide that this working sabbatical approach was a good idea?
Well, I picked Spain
Mhm.
mainly because I thought, well, one country with a lot of opportunities. The weather should be decent, English speaking, good Wi-Fi,
Mhm.
things to do. It was kind of, yeah, that seems reasonable. And the working piece was really intriguing. So I left actually because I was renting a space and my lease was up in January. And I thought, instead of just hopping to the next place, why not go somewhere else? Instead of going to a new neighborhood, why don't I just go thousands of miles away? I'm unattached. My pets have passed. There's my family's healthy. We work remote. This is a stretch for sure with our organization, but uh, I think I can do this. And so in January, instead of renewing my lease, I had the bright idea to just rent places across Spain. And so I picked 7 cities that I thought would fit the mold. And I didn't spend equal time in all of them, but it averaged to be about a week in each place.
Mhm. Wow. So I don't imagine you just went to your team and said, hey, I've decided to take off for almost 2 months. See you when I get back. How did you prepare the business, your business partner, and your team members?
Ooh, and that was interesting because I we just got a new office space in September. And so I was feeling like we still had a little bit of kinkage happening with the office. It wasn't quite fully ready actually until about November. So I was feeling a little disjointed from that and a little guilty about this. But I
Mhm.
think I had actually come up with the idea in maybe August, September, October, something like that. Because when I looked back at my receipts, I had started booking things in October. So
Okay.
I think I actually had a conversation with Jay first. I'm looking at doing this, in Q1. What do you think? And he goes, hey, I love this idea. I'd love for you to test it out for my benefit in the future. I want you to make sure, I want you to document, like make sure that this process is somewhat repeatable if it works for you so you can share it with me and just be back before quarterly planning.
Okay.
So
Fair
that's
enough.
why it ended up being 7 weeks is like lease end. And then I came back, I think it was the week before quarterly planning. So,
Mhm. Now, you have said that you struggle with control, and I feel you. I do too. How did the distance force you to give up control a little bit and confront that?
gosh, Sue, that's a hard question because, it's funny, you have to like reflect on why am I feeling this need for control? What is it that is driving me to like get this white knuckle grip on whatever it is you're holding on to? And I have to say, my friend Carolyn Lodge recommended The Untethered Soul book.
Mhm.
And so in reading that and also reading the Let Them theory, It's kind of the antithesis or the antidote, so to speak, to control.
Hmm.
And so I went into this trip thinking, I can't be everywhere, do everything the same as if I were in the States because the time zone difference was about 7 or 8 hours, depending on where I was.
Hmm.
And to be honest, the first 2 weeks or so, I burnt myself out. I worked probably several hours first thing in the morning. I'd wake up and catch up from the day before. I would go grab something to eat. I might do one tourist activity, like because my team was relying on me to send them pictures. So I thankfully was obligated to them to go do something. So they're like, she's not just sitting over there, like wasting away on some desk in a
Hmm.
condo, in Madrid. So I'd go do something and then I'd come back and I would sit down for like 8 to 9 hours straight until maybe midnight, work, and then I'd go get dinner. And I do it all over again and somehow squeeze in the gym in there. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I had scheduled a little bit of R&R time for myself. And I was like, I am so burnt out. Like, I don't think it's just the activity of walking. I don't think it's going and sightseeing. Like it wasn't physical exertion. It was so much mental energy. And I
Hmm.
was like, I feel like I'm trying to control the situation and being the same person that I was when I left, but I'm not. This is an opportunity to step back and maybe observe because Q4 was absolutely crazy for us. So Q1 was sort of starting to implement all the strategies and the new tactics and, get some quarterly momentum going. So, from a timing perspective, it actually was, I thought, a good time for me to go away.
Hmm.
Everyone had their like marching orders and we were all super aligned. We ended the year feeling great about each other and our clients and had fun. So, in some senses, the control was sort of wrenched from me, but I also was able to like let go as it was being pulled away.
Hmm. After those 2 weeks of burning yourself out, what did you change? How did you structure your days differently to make this a more positive and less exhausting experience?
Well, I wish I could say this was planned. And in some ways it was. Like clearly I know myself to schedule some time off, like a third of the way into the trip. So that I was grateful for that I wanted to enjoy myself without having the obligation of having to log in and, make sure people were getting what they needed from me. I have to say, like, this is so strange to admit, but thinking about the untethered soul and the idea of surrendering. I really practiced that a lot because I went into the trip going, okay, you're going to hit, I don't know, a dozen airports. You're going to travel by plane, train, automobile, and everything in between, metro, bicycle, tuk-tuk, like you name it. Something is bound to happen. Law of large numbers, you're going to run into an issue. Proactively practice surrendering to the experiences. Things are not going to be the same as they are in the States. You're going to have to kind of let go and expect the unexpected. So,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, like the travel aspect itself helped prepare me mentally to be able to let go. And then at the end of that wonderful week, I spent a week in the Canary Islands and had the best time of my life. I got massive food poisoning.
Oh
And
no.
so my next week, I was kind of down and out and in a pretty like rough physical condition. So it was kind of like I had given up, surrendering, letting go of expectations and unreasonable control. And I also wasn't feeling well. So I couldn't go back to that habit. So my
Mm-hmm.
body and mind were sort of aligned in this bizarre compendium of illness and intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd say like I was able to keep that. I was able to go, this was largely intentional, but I know I need to take care of my body because I'm here for several more weeks by myself. I need to make sure that I can actually handle, what's coming up and I have to travel and I'm doing this by myself. I'm taking care of myself. So I was able to manage my energy in a really smart way.
Mm-hmm.
And coupling that with the experiences I'd had over the last couple of weeks of surrendering, it really helped prepare me to lean on my team a lot more, communicate where I needed to be, and not swoop and poop or micromanage, from a control aspect. I think Jay and I joke about, my business partner joke about canary in the coal mine for him is when he starts getting into stuff and asking questions, like really granular stuff, he's feeling out of the loop. And so it's
Mhm.
like hey, let's make sure we loop him in and follow up and close the circle of information or whatever. And so for me, it was similar in that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that I had what I needed. The team felt like I was available, but not breathing down their neck virtually.
Mhm. So you stopped the work till midnight.
I did. I did. I got a really good flow. And of course, each city was a little bit like challenging because some cities would be open till 1 a.m. for food. I learned there were some that were a little sleepier. And so the
Mm.
whole working till midnight thing really bit me in the butt a couple times where I'd go out to try to find food and there really wasn't anything. That one
Oh,
night I
wow.
ate potato chips and drank the beer my Airbnb host left for me, and that was a brutal dinner.
Oh, no.
But I would get up, I'd go to the gym, and so everything was just pushed later where I would kind of have my life happen before 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I would go work. And so then I could be present, and I felt like I had created a little bit of mini structure in my day, and that really helped a ton.
Right.
And to not feel guilty. Like,
Right. Talk to
I'm
me
there to
more
have
about,
this experience.
yeah, talk more about the guilt part, because I think if I'm imagining if I were able to do something like this, that is what I would struggle with the most is the
It's
guilt.
real. And I think because you care is why you would feel guilty. Um, there's a little bit too where I'm like, I feel guilty because I know that everyone enjoys my physical presence and I enjoy theirs. So there's like this culture aspect of I'm the one disrupting the culture.
Hmm.
And it feels selfish. And I don't know if women maybe struggle with this more than men, but the whole like doing something for yourself, even though my mother taught me at an early age, do stuff for yourself. Your family will thank you. It still has this little air of selfishness. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a little bit of control, but I really had to say, okay, you have one opportunity potentially in your entire life to do this. I am doing my absolute best, and I'm just going to enjoy the crap out of this
Hmm.
and make it the experience. I had a lot of people in a really nice way put pressure on me before I left, and they'd say, "You better come back with some really great stories." And I thought about that a lot the first couple weeks. I'm like, I can't stay home in this Airbnb and watch Netflix. That would absolutely destroy any street cred.
Right.
If I go home and they're like, "What did you do? Where are your pictures?" and I have nothing to show for it, it would be
Mhm.
embarrassing for me. So it was kind of nice to have that little voice in my head say, "Go out, go explore, just go walk, go get something to eat," because every time I do that, it would be a new experience.
What are some things that you did to keep in touch with your team and your business partner that really worked for you? And what are some things you tried that didn't work so well?
Ooh, Jay and I talked about, and I think he may have agreed with me when we had the conversation, but I thought one of the things that helped us a ton stay aligned and connected was we kept up our same page meetings. So we meet and have met for years every Friday, just to connect on business stuff, personal stuff. Like half the meeting is connecting with each other and what's going on in our lives. And we had also started our own podcast. So I brought my microphone with me and we recorded every week without fail while I was gone. And just being able to have those conversations before the podcast recording was amazing. I think that really helped us a lot because it wasn't necessarily an operational conversation. It was sort of like felt fun and innovative, and we tried to make it timely based on issues or opportunities that came up in the organization or what we were hearing from prospects or clients. So it was
Mhm.
a nice way to talk about the business while helping others. And we were doing something new that we'd been talking about doing for, 6+ years together.
Right.
And while we did not plan that, I attribute those two meetings to keeping excellent communication and collaboration and partnership with him. And then with
Hmm.
my team, I kept my one on ones with them, even if it was like 10 p.m. my time. I would make sure to still keep my one on ones with my leadership and other team members and try to be visible on video at a minimum once a week.
Hmm.
Um, and then just being engaged, like we have Slack and ClickUp. And so showing that I am still here and I'm paying attention and I'm recognizing them for their hard work.
Mm.
Um, and what didn't work, it was probably just trying to do things outside of context. So one of the ways in which Jay and I have gotten really successful at like vacations, for example, when one of us goes away, the other one takes over and basically runs the business while the other one's gone. And we have a meeting where we meet first thing after the person's back. You don't do anything with your email, your Slack, nothing. You just check with me first, or he check, or the other way around.
Hmm.
And that's to give guidance and direction on what's really important today. It's not 500 emails. It's not 500 Slack messages. It's here's what I'm telling you happened last week, and here's how you can move forward. And I think by me trying to follow along virtually with everything, it created a lot of like stress and stories in my head because I wasn't hearing the context. And we
Mm.
weren't really actually fully in our PM system yet with communication. So I was finding like holes in stuff and asking for loops to be closed that were closed, just not with my explicit knowledge. So I was like, okay, just maybe like let off and trust. And, they'll reach out to you if they need help. And Jay's there and he's handling things. Um, so that was probably the only thing was just me trying to be too involved and recognize there is a level of involvement you have when you're in person. And you really can't replicate that, on a one-to-one basis virtually.
Mm. So 7 weeks in Spain is the ultimate remote work.
Yes, it was.
What myths do you think leaders are still clinging to about remote work that you were able to dispel through your travels?
Mm. I think remote work implies this you're not glued to your desk kind of situation, which is pretty archaic. And from an energy management standpoint, I love when my team goes for a walk in the afternoon. I love seeing them like get away from their desk and go do something. That was probably one thing I actually brought home with me was um, going and doing a walk after lunch or sometime in the day. I used to feel guilty about leaving my desk. And I think I've eaten lunch at my desk for probably 9 years.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah. And don't do that anymore. Girl, get away, walk, take a break because it really refreshed my mind and my energy. And I just really enjoyed breaking up my day like that. I felt like I was trying to run marathons all day, and that's just not healthy. So I just keep sprinting, and I felt like I was doing a better job versus at the end of the day when you're so tired, you're like, why am I working on this spreadsheet? I don't remember what I was supposed to be doing with this.
Right.
I actually
And why
felt
is
more
it
productive.
important?
That's right. I did. I felt more productive in some ways with remote work. And I would say remote work on travel is different than remote work at home because I had no responsibilities. I had no, house to clean. I moved every week, so I didn't have to do laundry and I somewhat bought groceries, but I had like, you know, no day-to-day responsibilities or errands. I still paid my bills and all that, but I think that made it a little like more flexible versus
Hmm.
coming back home. I still enjoy remote work for heads down focus stuff. If you can have the discipline to turn things off, I actually think remote work is more productive for certain tasks and activities than it is when you're not.
What would you say to another COO or CEO key leader of an organization who wants to do something like this, but they're scared to step away.
Test it out. Do an entire week of no communication. Like, hear me when I say this. If you want to do this, go away for a week and first of all, do it on a vacation. You have to like, I think for me, I'm a cold turkey kind of person. So if I do like a health change, I just go cold turkey. I don't ease in. I don't do any of this. It's like all or nothing. So I was a raw vegan for many years. It was an overnight change. This would be the same thing where you have to get away from the habits of being yourself. And if you have a control issue, you're the kind of person who's checking your email on vacation. If you can just stop that for a second and realize that the business will do okay without you. Yeah, stuff's going to happen. Fires are going to pop up. There is something that will drive you crazy. But if you can just practice a complete rip off the band-aid cold turkey for 1 week and like let your team surprise you. And maybe they'll do better without you for a week breathing down their neck. See what kind of ideas because they get creative solving problems. Um, I know that's probably like a different answer than some other people would give, but to be able to go work away, you also have to recognize that you're going to have that uncomfortable tethering, that pull from the inside of, I'm not here. What are they going to do? Give them the practice so that
Mm-hmm.
you know what to do when you get back versus, trying to go work remote. You're going to end up in the exact same situation I did, where you're going to do too much. You're going to swoop and poop. I think if you're away for a week, you can see where the communication gaps are, the problems that your team is not empowered to solve. And so you can kind of proactively, like, really just do a rip the band-aid off and get after it.
Right. That short test gives you an opportunity to see what the capacity is of your team to function without you and what holes you need to fill. And
Hmm.
that's a good exercise whether you're planning an extended travel or not. That's that's always a good thing to figure out.
Yeah, and make sure if you have a business partner that they're super aligned with like what your expectations and theirs are. So Jay and I would say if there's ever an emergency, a text message, don't assume I'm going to check. I'm actually really good when I'm on vacation. I don't check email or Slack. I'm happy to deal with the 700 emails when I get back.
Mm-hmm.
I never used to be that way, but I've learned like there is no benefit in me doing this like herky jerky insertion, extraction of myself in the business, it just doesn't do anyone any good. Let them help themselves solve some problems. Jay is completely capable. I'm capable when he's gone. Uh, I think it just creates some better conversations and lets people step up, whereas
Mm-hmm.
they may not otherwise have been given the opportunity.
Right.
But, just make sure like you remember the five love languages?
You do.
They had the languages of appreciation, make sure if like quality time is important, make sure you kind of keep that going. Like whatever it is that really helps your relationship thrive, keep that going in some way, shape, or form so that the other person isn't feeling like left out or resentful or, you know, or if you're creating stories in your head, you know that you've already had the conversation and that, this is a different experience for both of you. And then
Mm-hmm.
have the honest conversation when you come back. Like, hey, what worked well for you? What didn't? Jay and I talked and it was like that was actually a good amount of time for both of us. It was just right. It wasn't too long, but they definitely, missed me, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And Jay actually had to deal with some stuff that he would never have had to deal with if I was there. And he's like, I really appreciate when you deal with this stuff. And I'm like, I know.
Right. Yeah, we all have our little buckets of the things that we're great at, and when somebody else has to carry our bucket, it can be an eye opener.
Well said. Yeah.
So, if you were to do something like this again, is there anything that you would change?
I actually would, which this is going to be strange. So when I booked this trip, I only booked two activities for the entire 7 weeks. I did have all my airfare and lodging, but I really wanted to leave myself open to magic. And I felt like if I overstructured an itinerary, I would never have experiences that were unexpected.
Mm.
And it completely held true. I couldn't have planned this trip better if I'd actually planned it. So I would actually back off on my travel reservations if I did this again, because there were a couple times where I changed my mind and I preferred not to go in an airplane and I wanted to go via train. And
Mm.
even though it was slightly less convenient, it was more scenic. I really didn't want to deal with, running through an airport with a tight turnaround. And so I kind of wished I'd been more flexible because that's kind of how Europe is with airplanes. They're a little more flexible. And in some ways, I did book 4 wrong flights when I had food poisoning to try to get home or get to my next city because I was so sick. I didn't pay attention to the date on my booking, and they don't do changes. So
Oh.
I'd probably like let myself have a little bit more flexibility.
Hmm.
Um, and then I actually might pack a little less. I did have 1 suitcase, but when I came home, it was one thing I actually missed a ton, which was living out of a suitcase. This sounds so strange, but I enjoyed the simplicity. I actually, for the first time, could appreciate the whole Steve Jobs black turtleneck thing, where decision fatigue is real. And so when I came home, I actually cleaned out more than half of my closet. I donated.
Wow.
And it felt so good just to have less choices. It felt really good.
That's an unexpected benefit.
I didn't even think about it until I got home and I started unpacking. And it took me 2 hours to get ready for work the first day I was back. And I was stressing out and I'm like, how do I not know where everything is? And I had just moved into my new place the night I flew back on a Sunday,
Oh,
went to work Monday. And I went, it's because I'm missing living out of my suitcase. It was so simple. Everything was compartmentalized and organized. And I picked up and moved every week and it was no problem.
right.
And now I don't know where anything is.
Oh my goodness. That's funny. So, are you going to do this again? And if so, where to?
I have been advised I should do this again. I actually think once a year is good for me to step away in some way, shape, or form. Um, I I would like to continue practicing the idea of surrender and like letting myself, wander, my mind, my body. I ended up listening to a lot of podcasts. So from a personal and professional perspective, it actually gave me a lot more than I thought I would get out of it. Um, it was kind of surprising how fast and yet how slow the time went. I would definitely do it again in Europe because I think you get a little too muscle memory when you're closer to home. It's
Hmm.
easy to get into your kind of ruts and routines. So I would go somewhere similar-ish where they have good Wi-Fi, good food, more accessibility with hours, plenty of lodging, and things to do during the day. So I haven't yet decided on a country, but boy, I've been exposed to a lot of countries in the last couple weeks, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. If you just slow down for a minute and don't try to plan it and let yourself go places that are somewhat unexpected, you will really surprise yourself.
What's the biggest takeaway you hope listeners will pay attention to and keep thinking about after listening to this episode?
I don't know. I'd love to ask you that question because you and I have been talking about it for a while.
Mhm.
I am curious. In reading the articles and now talking to me, what would you say would be the thing you would be most excited to get out of it or try?
Just to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, that would be the thing is to to dare to do it and be able to let go.
Mm.
I'm not good at that.
No, I think a lot of people are not. And maybe we don't even recognize how bad we are at it
Mm-hmm.
because I have to say, when I came back to the States, it was kind of shocking in many ways, the culture that I had not been exposed to for 7 weeks and how different it was. And no, by the way, no culture is perfect. Like Spain is not a perfect country, the US is not a perfect country, but there are things you can learn from each one that are unique to how you would interpret and integrate into your life. But continuing the practice of, I don't have to have everything figured out. I
Mm,
can go and, like, the scariest thing for someone would be I go book a one-way ticket somewhere and I book 1 week at an Airbnb or maybe two, and that's it. And then figure it out. And it's kind of
mhm,
amazing how it's like giving kids a hard thing to do. They don't realize how strong they are until they can overcome that hard thing. It's the same thing with adults. And I kept that in my mind a lot, was how children have to overcome so much in order to be an adult. Their brains and bodies go through so much. Why do we stop that? Where does that curiosity end? Why do we get so structured and rigid as adults and control so darn much? It creates so much misery.
right.
And I wanted to kind of experiment with how much misery I was creating for myself.
Interesting. Misery can
And
be
it
a good
was,
thing.
well, it was like the whole suitcase thing. Like,
Mhm,
wow, if you don't love something and if you're not wearing something and you don't love it, like, get rid of it. Like,
right, right.
if every time you go in your closet and you're like, oh, this hideous thing, just get rid of it, simplify
Mhm,
your life. And I was so worried about, my smoothies and my food and all of these rigid things that I'd had in this perfectly crafted life before I left. And I came back and had none of that, and it's worked out just fine.
mm. Well, if all we want is for things to be comfortable and familiar, why do we bother traveling at all? That the
Mm.
whole point is to experience new things.
Yeah,
And
and I was lucky, by the way, caveat that I didn't, knock on wood, have any crazy experiences or get trapped in an airport for 5 days or anything like that.
mhm,
So I have a little bit of a rosy, lucky glow, I would say, after the 7 weeks. But I think part of that was also accepting in advance stuff's going to happen. And what can you do
mhm.
about it? Nothing. Just move on,
You do what
accept.
you can do and just accept that there are limits.
Hmm.
Um, well, such an amazing experience. I am so jealous. I am inspired to do the same thing. I'm not sure where I'm going to go or when, but I want to try it for myself. So I
You
really appreciate
absolutely
sharing.
should.
Yes, maybe Scotland. That's
Ugh,
always been
was
on my
there
list.
last week and it is gorgeous. A
Yeah.
highly unexpected, beautiful place.
Well, I've got a mental top five list. We'll see where it is I manage to take myself. But thank you so much for being with me, for sharing your stories through LinkedIn and through this podcast. I'm inspired to go out and do it myself, and I hope that our listeners found some inspiration in your stories too.
Oh, thanks, Sue. Me too. I hope so too.
Great. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit jealous of Sarah's sabbatical in Spain, but very impressed by how she was able to maintain control and connection with her team. You can read more about the chronicles of Sarah's journey in the String by String newsletter on LinkedIn. And I also encourage you to check out her podcast, Revenue Rewired, on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Thank you for being here. Until next time.